Trust us with your family and home.
When you hear this,
they've got him again!
And this,
he scored!
And this,
oh boy, what a move by Embiid!
You think of us. We are sports. 97.3 ESPN, WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City, a Town Square media station. This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Well, the Sixers lose 2 games, and then Joel Embiid is not playing tonight. Like we couldn't have seen this coming. We are going to get into that coming up tonight on Game Night here on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. As always, you can join the conversation at 609-403-0973. You also could DM the show through the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. We're going to get deeper into the Sixers because the news that came out earlier today was foreshadowed over the weekend. If you checked out what Doc Rivers and Joel Embiid said, and the man who heard it and wrote about it initially before the news came out is going to join us in less than 20 minutes. Keith Pompey, who covers the Philadelphia 76ers for the Philadelphia Inquirer. He will join us to get into all of those details because this Joel Embiid situation, and listen, I understand there's a lot of emotional reaction to what is going on. I understand the comments that were made by Kendrick Perkins. There's a lot of reaction to it, so we're going to try to cover all the bases with that. Plus, I also want to get to the Phillies roster is coming into form. Couple important roster moves already made today. What does that mean for the Phillies season upcoming? We will get into that as well. Plus, Howie Roseman made some comments today about CJ Gardner-Johnson leaving. I thought were very interesting. That and more, Power Hour right now on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. But before we get to anything else, we got to get to the Sixers news. Now, over the weekend, if you were, maybe you were not paying deeply attention to the Sixers on Friday and Saturday night, it's hard for the average sports fan to be dialed into a Sixers game 2 straight days after 10 p.m. at night, especially if you're a parent with kids or you're somebody who wants a social life. I totally get that. But there was something that was said after the game that led us to where we are right now. Joel Embiid made the following comments after the game. Now, at no point was anyone blaming Joel Embiid for the losses on Friday and Saturday night. In contrary, you should probably applaud him for going out there. But this is what Embiid said on Saturday night that led to what happened today. He said, quote, "I'm going to need 1 game off pretty soon." He said, "It's about being healthy the playoffs. Tonight, I was very sloppy. Usually when I'm sluggish and sloppy, that means I'm tired. Like you said, I've been playing a lot of minutes. I've been playing every single game. So to add that dealing with the calf issue and whatever it is with my foot, I think at some point you got to look at the bigger picture, which is the playoffs." Obviously, then the news came out earlier this afternoon that Joel Embiid, after warm-ups this morning in Denver, the Sixers medical staff decided to shut him down and rule him out for the game tonight. Now, whether that was specifically because of the calf, whether that was specifically because of fatigue, playing in Denver obviously is a problem for a lot of guys, making that adjustment to the high altitude. Whatever the reason is, the Sixers made the decision. Not in Joel Embiid, the Sixers did. And I think that there's a very interesting thing to take away from all of this. And that is, I think that it's very obvious that Joel Embiid feels a burden. He feels a burden on his shoulders to pick up the burden of this organization when James Harden doesn't play. Instead of the Sixers protecting Embiid's best interests over the weekend, they lost 2 straight games that they didn't need Joel Embiid out there for. I told you guys when I was last here on GameNight on 97.3 ESPN on Wednesday, they could beat the Bulls without Embiid and Harden, and you saw that kind of came true. Harden didn't play. Embiid only played, 17 minutes in the game. They won in a landslide. Winning your Eastern Conference games this point of the season is way more important than winning games in Phoenix and Golden State. And the Sixers, they put themselves in this predicament. The Sixers and their management of their players and the schedule put Joel Embiid in the awkward position of now being questioned by former NBA players about things that he should not be in question about. Kendrick Perkins is trying to blame Joel Embiid for something that was out of his control. And other people are blaming Joel Embiid for missing this game tonight. When really the person who should be blamed is the 76ers organization. Look, I am not going to be like some people who grab a microphone on multiple media platforms who don't want to point the blame at the Sixers when it's inconvenient for them to do so. I'm not that person. I am here to tell you that the 76ers, with their long history of mismanaging Joel Embiid and being overly cautious, not cautious enough, and so on and so forth, have put their star player into a no-win situation. And Joel Embiid can say all he wants in the Athletic piece about how he doesn't care what people think, he's okay with being the bad guy. He can say that stuff all he wants. But we are all human beings. We are all people who don't like to be called names and criticized for things that are not our fault. Since the dawn of time, humanity has been full of people who do not like being blamed for things that are not their responsibility. It's a very simple equation. So Joel Embiid can say all he wants, that it's not his fault, that he doesn't care, that he doesn't care about the MVP race, and whatever else however he wants to verbalize it. The reality is, deep down, he probably does care, because nobody gets up there and says, I'm okay with being the villain if they haven't accepted the fact that people are going to say bad things about them. It's a reality. Doc Rivers did not help his superstar on this weekend when he came out and said, we don't care what people think. We're going to do what's best for the team and for Joel and for everyone involved. When Doc says stuff like that, what he's telling the fans, what he's telling the league is, you can take a long walk on a short pier, and I don't care. I won't come out there to throw you a life jacket. I am not going to be there to help you. I am not going to be there to do anything for you. And this is where Joel Embiid gets stuck between a rock and a hard place. And this is the reason why that there are people like Marcus Hayes, who wrote what he did in the Philadelphia at Philly.com. There are many people who cover the NBA, like Sam Amick for The Athletic, and a lot of other people. There's a lot of people who have made the conjecture, at what point does Joel Embiid say, I've had enough? Joel Embiid is not the kind of player or the person to say, cry me a river, or to turn around and say, woe is me, or anything like that. It's just not in his personality. It's not who he is. But we, all fans of sports, whether you're the Sixers fan or a fan of another NBA team, but if you're listening to us here on 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle, Josh Hennig hanging out with you on a Monday night. About 10 minutes, we'll talk with Keith Pompey for the Philadelphia Inquirer, who covers the 76ers. Whatever sports fan you are a fan of, we all have been in the situation where we have looked at a player, an athlete, and at a perspective of them that was not correct because other people painted them in a certain way. There's tons of examples of it. And now Joel Embiid is being made to look like a bad guy, as he calls it, because the Sixers just wouldn't tell him no on Saturday or Friday night. There is no reason Joel Embiid had to play back-to-back on a road trip. But the Sixers let him do it. And now Joel Embiid is being questioned for his manhood and what kind of athlete he is, what kind of competitor he is, when it wasn't his decision. The reporting is clear. Now, unless you want to be the person who gets up, whether it's on Twitter or whatever social media platform or whatever show that maybe you're someone part of the media who wants to make this declaration. I don't know who you are, but there are these people out there who would get up there and say that Adrian Wojnarowski and Ramona Shelburne are lying. That ESPN's NBA coverage is lying. So if you're that person, I can't help you. But for the rest of us who actually know that the people who are making this reporting are pretty reliable people, you will understand this was not Joel Embiid's decision. This was the Sixers' decision. And now you're going into this game tonight without Joel Embiid as the debate rages for MVP. When Joel Embiid deserves credit for feeling like he has to fill in for James Harden when he's not out there. That's kind of pressure this guy thinks he's under. And it's completely unfair that this organization has basically not taken care of him better. We'll dig deeper into the Sixers coming up in a few minutes from now. And of course, we'll get more of your texts a little bit later this hour, 609-403-0973, and your DMs into the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank. If you have the 973 ESPN mobile app or you've been recently to 973ESPN.com, you would have known that the Phillies have made a couple significant decisions. Among those significant decisions is that Scott Kingery will not start the season as a part of this final roster on opening day. And I think that this decision is pretty fair because Kingery was already not on the 40-man roster. And for those who might not fully understand how this works, basically Major League Baseball teams have 40 players who are on a specific list. And the purpose for that list is to allow the transaction of players from the majors to the minors to be a little bit, and vice versa, to be a little bit more of a seamless process. Scott Kingery was never on that 40-man roster. So in order for him to have been on the opening day roster, which is 26 people, not 40, that he would have had to have made the team, and they would have had to take someone off of that 40-man. Now, as of right now, both Bryce Harper and Rhys Hoskins have not been officially put on the 60-day injured list. Now, Dave Dombrowski said there's a reason for that. They think that Harper could come back before even, the end of June at this point. And 60 days from the start of the season basically is Memorial Day weekend, June 1st. That means that Rhys Hoskins could still be put on that 60-day roster, leaving the roster open for another transaction move down the road. For all we know, this could be roster gymnastics, but it looks like as of right now that Dalton Guthrie and Jake Cave are going to make the roster. And if you know anything about Guthrie and Cave, you know that both of those players are outfielders, not infielders, which suggests to me that the the Philadelphia Phillies are going to go with a rotation in some capacity of Derek Hall, JT Realmuto, and a couple other guys at first base. Now, whether that person is Nick Castellanos, as Castellanos reportedly told the Phillies he'd be willing to do that, I don't know. Whether that involves Alec Bohm moving from third to first, I hope not, but it's certainly a possibility. Whether that is someone like Edmundo Sosa or one of those guys, Josh Harrison getting more first base reps, I'm not 100% sure. But you don't put 2 extra outfielders on a roster on a team that values position versatility if you are not anticipating one of those outfielders who are in the current starting lineup, Schwarber in left, Marsh in center, Castellanos in right. If at least one of those guys is not going to get a significant amount of playing time at DH and or first base. Just something to think about as Phillies have opening day on Thursday. We'll get back to the Sixers coming up next year on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, being brought to you by Jenkins & Sons. One call does it all. No need to call the drain guy, the heater guy, or the plumbing guy. Just call 609-641-6440 for new heating and air installation, service and maintenance, ductless air conditioning systems, water heaters, boilers, gas furnaces, leak repairs, and more. Just call Jenkins, 609-641-6440, and online at jenkinsandsons.com.
Here's what you missed on Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max.
Jokic was running away with MVP. How much of this switch in sentiment here, public sentiment, has to do, you think, with the reaction to, hold on, Jokic is about to win 3?
0.
And how much of it is what Embiid's been doing?
0 on the first question. Public sentiment doesn't sway my opinion. I don't care what other people think. I'm watching games. I'm seeing things for myself. I did think Jokic had a lead, but it's not just about how you start the season. It's the way you end the season as well. Meanwhile, Denver, they've been struggling down the stretch. There have been legitimate questions about what's going on in Denver right now. So at the end of the day, to me, this is a race. If I were to create a hierarchy, it would have Joel Embiid with a slight edge over Giannis, and then I'll have Jokic third.
Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. Weekday mornings at 6 on 97.3 ESPN. Brought to you by
The Gallery Bar Book and Games at Ocean Casino Resort. For more, visit oceanac.com.
With Mega Millions now up to $322 million, what are you waiting for? A $2 chance could make you Jersey's next mega winner. After all, anything can happen in Jersey.
Yes, we do have availability. Those dates for how many guests?
Andrea's Boutique Hotel is the destination to tie the knot.
Oh, you want the whole property?
She needs an assistant to catch the bookings bouquets.
249 guests, huh? Oh, and 3 dogs.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. We instantly connect you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Attention car buyers. Matt Blatt Kia has 3 questions. Do you have a current vehicle loan or lease? Do you want a low financing rate? Do you want a new ride? If you have to guess, then stop what you're doing and get to Matt Blatt Kia today. Because if you're currently stuck in a loan or lease, Matt Blatt Kia wants to get you released with 0 down and 2.9% financing for 48 months or no payments for 90 days on every 2023 Kia Forte in stock. Have a job clearing $350 per week? Matt Blatt Kia wants to approve you today. So bring any trade to Matt Blatt Kia and drive home in a brand new Kia with peace of mind with Matt Blatt Kia's exclusive 4-day love it or leave it return policy.
It's gotta be a Matt Blatt Kia.
With approved credit, not all will qualify. Go to mattblattkianj.com for complete details or 888-505-6670. Price includes all costs to be paid by consumer except for licensing, registration, and taxes. Expires 3/31/23. Matt Blatt Kia, 6211 Black Horse Pike, Egg Harbor Township, and now on Route 37 in Toms River.
It's March, and you know what that means. Taxes are almost due. Jackson Hewitt can help you win tax season. That's the sound of your maximum tax refund. The sound of getting 50% off tax prep. The sound of many of our competitors' prices going up. And the sound of getting to your nearest Jackson Hewitt. Hurry in for 50% off tax prep before this offer expires April 9th. Limited time offer for new clients filing at participating locations. Max value $200. Visit jacksonhewitt.com/50 for terms.
This world has its limits, but in the all-new, all-electric Nissan Ariya, you've got a world of possibilities. You can leave it all behind in serene interiors, or you can go after it with available e-Force all-wheel drive. Go your way in the all-new, all-electric Nissan Aria. Nissan Aria with e-Force not yet available for purchase. Expected availability early 2023. Subject to change. e-Force all-wheel drive is an optional feature. e-Force cannot prevent collisions or provide enhanced traction in all conditions. Always monitor traffic and weather conditions.
Hey, Coach, we need to score. What's the call?
We're gonna wing it. We're calling the pick.
The pick?
Yeah, the one, the only, the original Piccalilli Inn to score some of South Jersey's best wings and homestyle favorites.
But, Coach, it's the middle of the game.
Pre-game, post-game, during the game, the pick's wings, tails, and ears are always the right call. They're right on Route 206 in Chemung, or check them out on Facebook. Now, who wants mild and who wants hot?
The Piccalilli Inn.
You're listening to Josh Hennig.
Tonight on 97.3 ESPN coverage begins at 9:30 p.m. Tom McGinnis on the call. Of course, the big news coming into today is Joel Embiid will not play. But as Keith Pompey writes about over at the Philadelphia Inquirer and Philly.com, follow her at Pompey on Sixers, you've seen this coming. What are we talking about? Well, Keith Pompey joins us right now here on GameNight on 97.3 ESPN and 97.3 ESPN mobile app. Keith, welcome back in. How's the road trip treating you?
It's so far so good. I mean, it's just about over, so good. It's good.
So, Keith, explain to the audience who, listen, these games are 10 o'clock at night on the East Coast. A lot of people, the weekend happens. They want to have a social life. Maybe they have kids they're chasing around. What Joel Embiid and Doc Rivers said over the weekend that you wrote about at Philly.com made it very clear that this situation the Sixers are in tonight was very likely to happen with Joel Embiid not playing.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, basically, like for people who didn't read the articles, it's one of those things where they were talking about, it's all about staying healthy, not trying to get injured in the regular season, the tail end, because they wanted everybody healthy for the playoffs. And Joel came out and said, several days ago, like he doesn't care about the MVP. He doesn't care about any of that stuff. He just wants to make sure that he's healthy in the playoffs. That's something that he hasn't been able to do the last couple of years, and he's focused on winning the championship, and that's what he wants. Now, I think that he would have loved to play in this game, but then when you look at it and you see how sluggish he was and how tired he looked and all that against the Phoenix Suns, you kind of knew that it was a great chance that he wouldn't play. And he even told me after the game that it was going to be one of those things. He would have to see how he felt over the next couple of days before it was determined if he was going to play or not.
So what do you say to the people out there? Because they're out there who are saying, well, why didn't the Sixers just sit him Saturday night? Why did he have to play back-to-back nights?
Well, I think part of that has to do with you have two superstars on this team. You're playing quality team. You want to win games. No James Harden. You look at it, Joel, I'm ready to go. Let me take one for the team or something like that. But I think so. Even though we're talking about the healthy, you want to remain healthy. At that particular time, I guess he felt like he was able to go, but also there wasn't no Harden. Like it's kind of funny that not funny, but on a night that Harden and Daniel House is coming back, Embiid is resting too. So you understand what I'm saying? Like they knew they still want to win these games. They want to do whatever they can to win them, but at the same time, they want to be precautious if they can.
And I'm glad you brought the being precautious part, Keith, because I know for me, I was, for lack of a better term, pounding the table last week saying anytime I see the word Achilles involved with a player, I was happy James Harden sat for a couple games because anytime you see the word Achilles, that has to make anybody a little bit nervous. And at least the Sixers said, hey, James, we want to win games, but your health is important. I'm appreciative that they went about it that way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is what it is. Now, again, Embiid said a couple nights ago, what night? It was actually Friday night, that to him it's all about winning and it's not about individual. So This is an example to prove that, you know.
When you mentioned it all about winning, Keith, how much of that also is a maturity thing? Because, it feels like this team, there's a different attitude and vibe around them, at least for us who are not at the games every night like you are. Do you feel that as well, that maybe there's some more maturity in how they're approaching this year?
I do. I feel like there's some more maturity, but I also think that let's keep it 100 too. The Sixers have, this is crazy. The Sixers have 49 wins, right? And I'm going around in about what? But they have 49 wins. If once they win their next game, this is going to be their fourth season in a row on a 82 game schedule that they won 50 or more games. That's phenomenal. A lot of teams don't do that. But what has that gotten them? Second round exits. One of them a first round exit. So I look at it as if that, yes, there is some maturity, but at the end of the day, they know how important it is for them to play in the playoffs. Joel Embiid can win MVP. They can go win 55, 56 games, but will it really matter if they go out in the second round? And I feel like they understand that. So, yes, I guess that's part of the maturity that we're talking about. But it's also like they look at the big picture, man. Like none of this really matters at this particular time.
Keith Pompey joining us from the Philadelphia Inquirer, Philly.com. You can follow him in all the Sixers coverage on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers. Keith, right now the Sixers are sitting there in that third spot. The Bucks and Celtics all have exactly 30 wins in conference. All three are exactly 7-3 in the last 10 games. So what is your perspective on the Sixers right now in that hierarchy?
I mean, right now, if you look at it, to me, I think it's extremely, all three teams are very comparable and competitive. Like you look at it, you look at the 76ers and you say to yourself, well, they have their way with not their way, but, they got the best of the Milwaukee Bucks, right? So you look at that, it's a pretty good matchup. And then you look at what the Boston Celtics have been able to do to the Sixers this season, and you say that's a bad matchup. So when you look at it, you can't look at it and say the Sixers are so far behind, even though they're the third team and they're 4 games behind Milwaukee. It's kind of sort of like they're right there on the cusp of playing the Bucks. I think they can beat them. The thing is, I think that right now there might be a mental block, when it comes down to playing the Boston Celtics. But, I think that the Sixers, if the Sixers are healthy, if they are healthy, I think the Sixers could contend with either team in the playoffs.
You mentioned Boston and the mental block. Well, they're going to see Boston one more time in the regular season at home on April 4th. You know, Keith, how Sixer fans are. They like to circle games. But should they be circling that game?
I don't know if you're going to circle that game. I mean, because the thing is, it's at the end of the season. It could be cool, but like, who's all going? Like it's one of those things we don't even know who's going to play. Right. And then secondly, it could be one of those things. Like let's just say they're still in the hunt, all three teams as of right now. But these late game seasons is kind of like a lot of times people are doing stuff really vanilla. They don't want to play. They won't want to show anything because they know there's a possibility that they'll see each other in the playoffs. So, I don't know if we could put a lot of stock in it at all, like the way that people are saying. And we really definitely wouldn't put a lot of stock in it if it was one of the final 3 games. You know what I mean? Like we wouldn't put anything. We wouldn't learn anything about that from that game.
Keith, talk to me a little bit about DeAnthony Melton, because I don't think this guy is getting enough credit for how important he has been at times this year for this team. Do you think he's going to be one of the more important players for this team in the postseason?
Oh, definitely. He has to be. I mean, you look at him right now, he's their best guy coming off the bench. I mean, he's their 6th man. So when you look at that, yeah, no doubt, he has to be. He is their most important guy coming off. He is their really vital for them. I mean, he's the guy that whenever Embiid or Harden or someone is injured, it's like what they do is they'll go basically with a smaller lineup when Embiid's out sometimes, and they'll bring him in and go with 3 guards. When Harden's not playing or Maxi's not playing, he's in the starting lineup. So his role on his team is an important one and a crucial one. And he's also, not only that, he's one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, and he's also he's the best perimeter defender on the team. So yeah, his role is extremely important for the 76ers.
You mentioned those lineups. So is there a situation maybe where the Sixers could even go small in the playoffs? Maybe like with Embiid, Harden, Melton, Maxey, like a PJ Tucker kind of lineup. Like, is that a potential thing you could even see them doing?
I mean, I can see them going with a lineup during the course of the game. I don't see them doing that to start out a game.
Gotcha.
Like I don't now, like maybe if they're playing someone in Maxey and the Harden backcourt is a liability, I could possibly see them bringing Maxey off the bench, right? But we're talking about PJ Tucker, you're talking about Embiid, right? But then Tobias Harris, I think you have to start him. He's one of the better players, and I also think that he's one of the guys. He's already went from being the second option last year, because Ben Simmons wasn't around, to now he's like the 4th option, and then you bring him off the bench. That could backfire a little bit in regards to team chemistry. Not saying he's a bad guy, but everyone wants to start. You know what I mean? So I don't envision them going with a small ball lineup to start a playoff game. I just don't.
Keith Pompey joining us here from the Philadelphia Inquirer and Philly.com. Follow him on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers. Keith, a couple more for you before I let you go. I know Joel Embiid has said multiple times, I don't care about MVP and all that stuff, but right now, if you go by the odds makers, they think Embiid is the favorite to win MVP. What is your perspective, Keith, on the MVP race?
You know what? I mean, put it this way. I'm one of 100 voters. I think it's 100 of them. And I'm going to vote for Joel Embiid, right? It's funny. When we all talk about the odds makers and stuff like that, which is good. It's good banter and all that. But I don't know how many of these odds makers have a vote. Right. And a lot of times you don't even know who has a vote until a week before the season is over. I guess when they notify people. But when I look at it, in my opinion, and what I think, Joel Embiid has performed, even though he's going to miss tonight's game. I feel like what he did against the Joker in the head-to-head matchup back in January speaks volumes. I also think that when you look at what Joel Embiid is doing in these games for his team to win, now he's not a triple-double machine like the Joker, but at the same time, the points that he's scoring is basically needed. So when you look at that, we're talking about the most valuable player, and he is the most valuable player to his team. And another thing I'll say, when he scored those 50-something points against, I believe it was 59, was it, against the Utah Jazz, they needed every single point for them to win that game. Every one. So when you look at stuff like that, he is the most valuable player, because he brings so much value to his team. So, yeah, I would say that. But as far as, I know the odds makers and all that, and I think we get caught up in that. But a lot of times these people don't even have votes. So
right.
I don't go by what they say.
Keith, before I let you go, I got to bring up your Twitter poll because you put on Twitter at Pompey on Sixers that you were asking people who the greatest Sixer player was a couple days ago. And the poll results came out with Joel Embiid basically winning by 0.5% over Wilt. And I got to tell you, I'm extremely disappointed. Like, I shouldn't be, but I'm extremely disappointed in people who voted in this poll for you, Keith. I mean, you had almost 6,000 people voting in this, and there was that many people who thought that Joel Embiid, who's still in the middle of his career, had a greater Sixers career than one of the greatest of all time in Wilt, one of the greatest of all time in Dr. J, and Allen Iverson, who for most people, at least in my age range, is our personal greatest Sixer that we ever saw, in their prime. So I got to tell you, your Twitter followers, or whoever voted in this, I got some problems with them.
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of like, it's one of those, that recency bias, you know what I mean? In a way, now, again, I do think that those four guys are probably, and when they end their careers, when Embiid ends his career, he's going to go down as one of the four greatest 76ers. I don't know if he'll go down as the greatest 76er. In my opinion, I know Wilt Chamberlain, Wilt Chamberlain was a little before my time, a lot before my time. But you hear the things that he's done and did this. But Wilt wasn't a Sixer for a long time, right? But he did great things. He was a warrior, most of his playing career. But Dr. J, to me, is the greatest 76er. You know what I mean? And because people forget about Doc when we talk about the recency bias. Before, now Wilt was the guy, but before like Magic and Bird got into their prime and did what they did, Dr. J was the best player. You know what I mean? And even still, he was the most exciting player until Michael Jordan came along, right? So then you got Michael Jordan, you have LeBron, you have this and that. So to me, it's Julius Erving. Now, again, Julius Erving is 73 years old. A lot of these people on Twitter are younger people, and they don't know who he is. He's just the old dude who has number 6, right? But they probably think LeBron James is the real number 6. It was Bill Russell. So you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, but don't get me wrong. And here's something else. Wilt won a championship. Dr. J won a championship. Wilt was a league league MVP numerous times. The same thing with Julius Erving. You know what I mean? So those things have to speak volume. They're champions, league MVPs. So those things have to speak volumes.
Also, people forget that, Julius Erving led the Sixers to multiple NBA finals before they got Moses Malone and won it all. It's not like he was, getting knocked, no offense to Joel Embiid, but Dr. J wasn't getting knocked out, early in the playoffs year in and year out.
Nah, and and that's not. But see, the thing is, and I don't think that should be a knock. That shouldn't be a knock against Joel. I think Joel has some bad luck, and I also think Joel isn't as involved. I think Joel was a guy who came here. Let's face it, this is the crazy part. People don't want to remember this or want to admit this. When Ben Simmons was drafted, Ben Simmons was supposed to be the guy, and Joel was supposed to be the co-star. But then Ben Simmons got injured, and Joel played those 30-something games, and people were like, whoa, he can play. He's better than what we thought. And then all of a sudden, at first, everyone was like saying, but why is this guy, how come he doesn't like being in the paint? How come he doesn't doing this? Now we're looking at Joel as a freak of nature because he's 7'2", 280, and he can do stuff that Kobe did. Right? So with that being said, but also Dr. J did have better teams than Joel. But all I'm just trying to say is that Dr. J was a multi-year NBA finalist, like you said, too, but he had Hall of Famers with him. But at the same time, he was still a multi-season MVP. He won multiple MVPs. And to me, that speaks volumes. Not to say that it won't happen to Joel, but as of right now, when you look at it, Dr. J has them and Joel doesn't.
Also, I'll just throw in there real quick before I let you go, Keith. I know I keep saying I'll let you go, but I got to bring up, we all know Iverson probably would have scored about 35, 40 points a game in today's NBA, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that guy was getting his rear kicked down to the floor, smashing to the ground, going to the basket. They can't do any of that stuff anymore.
Nah. Yeah, AI would have been. Yeah, AI would have been. It'd have been crazy. It would have been ridiculous. It's been ridiculous.
He's at Pompey on Sixers, where you follow him on Twitter. Of course, he writes for the Philadelphia Inquirer, covers the Sixers all year long, and he joined us right here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Keith, great stuff. Appreciate you jumping on, and safe travels home.
All right, my man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night, 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. We'll check in on the text board on the other side, 609-403-0973. Also, your DMs in the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. Don't forget Sixers basketball tonight here on your home for the Eagles, Sixers, and Flyers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN FM.
It's Sixers basketball tonight on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the 76ers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Over to Niang. Niang catch, shot, three ball, got it.
It's Sixers Nuggets tonight. Coverage begins at 9:30. Philadelphia 76ers basketball on your radio home of the Sixers in South Jersey, 97.3 ESPN.
Save thousands at Matt Blatt Kia. Get out of your old trade today, even if you owe thousands more than it's worth. Go to mattblattkianj.com for more details. That's mattblattkianj.com.
It's gotta be a
Matt Blatt Kia.
My ride smells just right, just right, just right, just right. Y'all gotta try that Febreze car. Just right, just right, just right. Yeah. La 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 la. With up to 40 days of consistency, on low Febreze car clips right on your face. You know my car's my happy place. Keep that smile on my face when it smells just right, just right, just right. Yeah, breathe happy Febreze. La 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 la.
Cashback is not available on gas in New Jersey and Wisconsin. This is Matt Crowder live at the gas station on 41st Street, reporting on those skyrocketing gas prices. Excuse me, miss. Are you buying less gas now because of the high prices?
Oh, I never pay full price for gas anymore. I just use the free Upside app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Upside app?
Yes, I get real cash back every time I buy gas.
Well, does that actually add up to anything?
I've made around $200.
Wow. Well, there you have it. Stop paying full price for gas. Download the free Upside app and get real cash back every time you buy gas. This is Matt Crowder Radio News Network. Download the free Upside app now to earn real cash back every time you buy gas. Use promo code LANE for an extra 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, to PayPal, or any gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Upside app and use promo code LANE for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code LANE.
The Dell Technologies semi-annual sale starts now with limited quantity deals on select performance PCs powered by 12th Gen Intel Core processors. Save on select Vostro laptops with built-in security features and select Latitude laptops with enhanced privacy, collaboration, and connectivity. Save on select essential accessories plus free shipping and special financing with Dell Business Credit. Call a Dell Technologies advisor at 877-ASK-DELL. That's 877-ASK-DELL.
Lowe's MVP's bonus days are back for pros. Right now, buy a DeWalt 20-volt Max Power Stack Battery 2-pack at $199 and get a select DeWalt Bear tool free. Plus, earn 3 times the bonus points on all Metabo HPT tools and products. Shop even more savings and bonus points offers during MVP's bonus days at Lowe's. Bonus points calculated before taxes and fees after applicable discounts, if any. Valid 3/20 through 3/31. Subject to change. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. Discount taken at time of purchase. Visit Lowes.com/MVP's bonus points for details.
I'm getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20.
So am I, because I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
I'm asking about Prevnar 20 because there's a chance pneumococcal pneumonia could put me in the hospital. Age 65 or older, you may be at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine, a Pfizer vaccine that can help protect against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. The most commonly reported side effect was pain at the injection site. For additional common side effects and full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
I want to be able to keep my plans. So I'm asking my doctor about getting vaccinated with Prevnar 20.
Nerds! Here at NerdWallet, we often see people wrestle with financial decisions.
Mike is in the ring, up against his nemesis, indecision. Mike can't decide the best way to save his money, and indecision has him boxed in. But wait, Mike tagged in NerdWallet!
Whew, let's go. With NerdWallet's side-by-side comparisons, you can find a high-yield savings account with interest rates that earn more bank for your buck. So the next time you wrestle with a financial decision, you'll come out on top. NerdWallet, the smartest decision for all your financial decisions.
Every piece of land has a story. Some write theirs behind the wheel of a John Deere 1 Series tractor, like the Upshaws.
This is my tractor Penny. It's all about attention to detail.
But the Nelsons love cruising around their expansive Montana ranch in their John Deere Gator UV.
We've been here since 1868.
While the Caggianos drive a John Deere zero-turn mower to keep their Long Island brewery looking sharp.
Don't call me, don't bother me. I'm going out to mow for a couple hours.
Run with us and start telling your story. Learn more at johndeere.com/radio.
At Total Wine & More, save big on what you love this month with hundreds of deals. Get up to 35% off over 100 different wines and spirits, including Cabernet, sparkling wine, single barrel bourbon, and so much more. These savings are huge, and even better, they're on top of prices that are already the lowest in town. Deals this good don't last long, so visit Total Wine & More to find yours. Love what you find at the lowest price, only at Total Wine & More. Drink responsibly, B21.
With GM financing, the qualified buyers excludes Corvette.
It's back! That's right! March Markdown is back at Bennett Chevrolet. And this year, the savings are bigger and better than ever, with huge savings on every vehicle, because we need to move out over 200 of them right now. Believe it or not, Bennett Chevrolet is selling new vehicles at GM supplier employee pricing for everybody. Plus, there's available 0% financing. And Bennett is giving a minimum $10,000 for the worst clunker towards any pre-owned vehicle in stock. That's at least 10 grand for total junk. Just imagine how much Bennett is paying for good trades. And Bennett's non-commissioned sales team is a delight to work with because they're paid on your Saturday. Don't miss March Markdowns going on now at Bennett Chevrolet, and get your new Chevy at GM supplier employee pricing, 0% available financing, and at least 10 grand for any trade towards any pre-owned in stock. Find new roads at Bennett Chevy, Egg Harbor Township, and BennettChevy.com.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Get to your thoughts and comments now. Power Hour wrapping up in about several minutes from now. Don't forget Sixers basketball tonight, 9:30 p.m. here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Always enjoy talking with Keith Pompey about the Sixers. When you have a guy who's with the team all the time like that perspective. George from Summers Point chimes in at 609-403-0973. George says most people think that the star player they saw for their team is the best ever. Most people voting Keith's poll probably only saw Iverson play or only heard of Dr. J and Wilt, like in the history books. So you always have to take these polls with a big grain of salt. Thank you. That's from George in Summers Point. Well, the thing is, George, the voters actually picked Joel as the best ever by 1/10 of a percentage point over Wilt. So, the poll is very skewed. The fact that Iverson and Dr. J were not really in the voting race in terms of percentages as much as I thought they would be, I think is in part speaks to what you're saying. And that is, you got to take people's voting with a grain of salt, because we know that for a fact, people's perspectives are so skewed sometimes. I think the reason why people know who Wilt is, respect him, is not because they actually ever saw a game of his ever. I mean, listen, when I was younger, we used to watch ESPN Classic. ESPN, when I was younger, when the cable channels expanded beyond, the first number range. Okay. And when we got to a world where you didn't wake up in the morning and it wasn't the Rainbow Channel at 4:00 in the morning, when we got to the world where there was 24-hour television and ESPN Classic was on, if your parents were nitpicking about what you watched at night and they didn't want you watching some of the content that was on late night television, right? You were stuck watching ESPN Classic, and you got to see a lot of Wilt. So I saw a lot of Wilt replayed again and again on ESPN Classic, whereas a lot of people probably growing up today, YouTube is more about, stuff now than it was back then. So that definitely has a recency bias, as Keith Pompey mentioned. Anonymous texter chimes in, says, is it too late for Embiid to change his mind and play tonight? Actually, again, it was not Embiid's decision. The reporting out there is that this was the team that shut Joel Embiid down. At the morning shoot-around, according to Ramona Shelburne and Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN, reports on ESPN.com, they reported that after the morning shoot-around, the Sixers decided to say Embiid was going to be ruled out. Now, whether that was specifically because of the calf, whether that was because Joel Embiid was already tired, as he said after Saturday night's game, and that the Sixers said, look, with the combination of being in Denver and the altitude, that's what we do with it. But it was not Joel Embiid changing his mind. It was the team rolling him out. Once you roll a player out, I think the NBA rules are you can't bring them back. Over on the text board, 609-403-0973. Text says, Josh, I'm hearing Derek Hall's job at first base. However, I'm going to limit him against left-handed pitching. I think Nick Castellanos will play first base versus lefties with an occasional JT Realmuto day. My opinion, I think Schwarber should be the primary DH with Jake Cave and Dalton Guthrie handling left field. Couple things there. Nick Castellanos has never played first base in his Major League Baseball career. He has played, I think it was 565 games at third base in the majors, which is ironically, I think the same exact number of games Derek Hall has played at first base in the minor league. So when you see Nick Castellanos play a game at first base this year, if it happens, it will be the first time Nick Castellanos plays a game at first base. So to me, I hope that's not what happens. I hope you see JT Realmuto there. People don't appreciate JT Realmuto's glove and his defense and the fact that you want to keep his bat in the lineup. And on the flip side, Garrett Stubbs bats around 300 against lefties in his Major League Baseball career, according to baseballreference.com. So you actually want Garrett Stubbs catching against the lefties. Kind of the predicament you're in. On the DMs, we got a message from James chiming in over on the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. James says, hey, Josh, what are your thoughts on Jeffrey Simmons and Eagles Green? James, my thoughts on Jeffrey Simmons and Eagles Green is I haven't seen any relevant reporting suggesting that is going to happen. That's my thoughts on it. I don't think, and again, this is my opinion, that we as a media, people like me who have a microphone or a television camera or a podcast or a YouTube platform, whatever position you are in, I don't think it is responsible of people like me and others to suggest that the Eagles are going to get a player who right now it doesn't look like is going to be an option for you for two reasons. One, remember what it took to get A.J. Brown last year. It's probably going to take a slightly lesser version to get that this year. And the problem is that there are people on Twitter with blue check marks who are retweeting other accounts that are not legitimate news outlets and sources and using that as fodder and provocation for you, the sports fan, to think a certain way. You are being manipulated to thinking that a player may be traded for your team because somebody who you think is supposed to be reliable is tweeting or writing about it. Right now, it is pure conjecture. Would I like to see it? Of course I would like to see it. But are you really willing to trade the 10th overall pick for a Jeffrey Simmons or a Keith Byard? Because That's what it's going to take to get a guy like that. It's going to take a serious draft pick. Now, listen, maybe you can get away with the 30th overall pick. I'm not the Titans. They're being ran by a completely different organization now than when you traded with A.J. Brown. That was John Robinson last year. Now it's Ray Carthon this year. Used to be the 49ers organization. So I'm assuming that if the Titans are potentially having a fire sale, they're expecting big things in return. So my opinion is that my thought is that if Jeffrey Simmons is going to be an Eagles green, it's going to be an expensive trade, not just in terms of draft picks, in terms of contracts. You still need to pay Jalen Hurts his money. You still need to pay all the draft picks their money. And you're going to pay Jeffrey Simmons? It's a difficult thing to ask. I'm Josh Hennig. Have a great night.
Nothing beats March Madness. The pure sound of a swish. The rattle of a...
If you are still watching on my YouTube channel, at Josh Hennig on YouTube, thank you for watching. I just wanted to grab a quick thought at the end of the broadcast here because James's question brings up a completely different issue with this. And as I mentioned, I didn't want to say names, all right? Because, in our business of sports media, I don't want to be one of those people who attacks other people in media. But I have to call things as I see them. And I understand that there are people whose jobs are to get clicks and attention and people being drawn to their Twitter accounts or their websites. So they're going to post things that are enticing and salacious and enticing to a lot of people. And it's not legitimate reporting. It's just conjecture and opinion. Me as a sports talk show host, part of my job is to bridge that gap between reporting and objective information, concrete information, and the opinion subjective world. And for me, I have not seen any substantial reporting about Jeffrey Simmons and the Eagles. I have not seen any substantial reporting about Keith Byard and the Eagles. I've seen a lot of people writing on Twitter, could the Eagles trade for Jeffrey Simmons? Could the Cowboys trade for Jeffrey Simmons? Could the Seahawks? Could the Bears? Everybody who has a Twitter or website is conjecturing right now, could my team get Jeffrey Simmons? Just because a team is open to trading a player does not automatically mean that your team is going to get said player or has interest in getting said player or even has the resources to get said player, because at the end of the day, your team has to still work within the confines of the sport. And for all I know, Ray Carthon may not like Howie Roseman. I don't know. Maybe Ray Carthon does like Howie Roseman. Maybe Ray Carthon is looking for a top 10 pick for Jeffrey Simmons and for Keith Byard. Does that mean he's going to get it? I don't know. Should the Eagles give it up? I don't think so. But I'm not in those conversations. I'm not in those meeting rooms. I don't know what's going on. So the problem is that when someone like James asks a question like, Josh, what are your thoughts on Jeffrey Simmons and Eagles green? The thought of it sounds great. The idea of it is appealing and appetizing, but it's cultivated, that idea, under a false pretense. It is being given to you by people who are just trying to get your attention, get your clicks, get their website views up. It is the job of all of us in media to try to draw people into the conversation, to get you enticed and coming back for more. All right. It's like how the supplement companies in the health and fitness world were told that it was now illegal to put dime, D-I-M-E-E, or in other variations, DME, into supplements. diomethylene was one of the names of dime. Well, why is that relevant? Well, diomethylene, the reason why it was made illegal to put in supplements, and the reason why you can get in trouble, not just if you're a professional athlete, but at your job, if you're drug tested for diomethylene, is because dime is related to meth. It is a cousin of methamphetamines. So if you are taking pre-workout supplements and your pre-workout supplement has dime in it, whatever variation of it is, the reason why the FDA told supplement companies to stop putting it in their supplements is because of the fact that if you go for a drug test at your job, you are going to get popped. What does it do with sports reporting? You are being given a supplement under false pretense. You're thinking you're going to the gym, getting a great workout, and it's all good. Then you find out you're taking a supplement that has a variation of methamphetamine in it. So you're getting this great workout under a false pretense. The high of the workout may be great in the moment, but later when you find out that you're basically just taking illegal drugs for pre-workout, it's kind of like when you read that story that you think you're going to get fill-in-the-blank player on your team because ABC.com blog, not literally ABC the network, but whatever website it is or whether reporter it is trying to manipulate you into thinking that way. If you enjoy the show, give me a like on YouTube, share it with your friends. I appreciate you guys watching the post show on my YouTube channel at Josh Hennig. I do try to avoid the mudslinging where I can, but I think clarity is important in today's day and age. I'm Josh Hennig at Josh Hennig on Twitter, at Josh Hennig on YouTube. I'll be back tomorrow night for Game Night here on 973 ESPN FM, 973 ESPN mobile app, and live right here on my YouTube channel.